Good morning, everyone. Get the stream is live.
Good morning.
Great. Hi. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Afternoon or evening from wherever you are joining us from. My name is Kweyakie, and I am your moderator for today. I'm speaking to you from Burkina Faso, where I am currently, teaching computer science courses at a university here. I'm a data scientist, a tech educator, and I'm co-founder of BecauseSheCan. That is an NGO that is increasing the participation of African women in the tech industry. Today's conversation is nurturing the next generation of African tech leaders. And this is part of a special series that is part of events leading up to the Royal Edition of Tech in Ghana, which is happening in Kumasi on the 4th and 5th of December at the Jubilee Hall at Mensah Palace. These conversations and sessions are meant to spark honest and practical conversations ahead of the main event, and also to explore how we can equip young Africans not just to work in tech, but to actually also lead in tech. So I'm very happy to be joined by our panelists today, who are all doing incredible work shaping the future of Africa in the tech landscape. So today we'll be unpacking what nurturing the next generation actually looks like in practice. And because this is a live and then a global audience, we would love to hear from you as well. So as we go along, feel free to drop, where you're joining from in the chat. And if you have any questions or reflections to also share, the chats and the comment section is a very good place to, do that. So with that said, we are going to dive right in. I'm going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll just get into it. So over to you, my dear panelists.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Porché, and I'm a global business strategist and the founder of Global Works Consulting Group in the US and Radically Rich Innovation Hub in Ghana. I have over 20 years of experience in digital transformation and IT modernization. I'm providing support in the government space, organizational change management, and I enjoy helping leaders and entrepreneurs across Africa and the diaspora to leverage tech using tools that are right within our hands to grow and access a global marketplace. So, through my work, I've done quite a bit of mentoring and helping innovators tap into leveraging AI in day to day work, remote work readiness, and also digital entrepreneurship. Really being able to do all things online and be able to create a life of fulfillment in that space. So I love to support the tech-driven solutions in bridge education business. And I'm a dual citizen. I live in Ghana and really look forward to creating more tech leaders in this space because it's game changing, it's constantly evolving, and truly, we have too many consumers while we have the capability and capacity to be creators in this digital economy. So, super excited about this conversation, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Erin. Samuel, you can go ahead.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Samuel Allotey. I'm a product designer and a co-founder of the Thedsgnjunkies, which is pretty much Ghana's largest design community that's helping young people across Ghana discover what's possible through design and technology. I also lead a creative agency called Lab Studio as a premium design house based in Accra. We've been fortunate enough to work with brands like KNUST and Google. We pretty much do world-class design experiences for different organizations across Ghana and different parts of the world. So I've said my work pretty much sits at the intersection of design, technology, and education. I'm very passionate about building products and spaces that help young Africans grow, lead, and become their best selves, pretty much.
Thank you very much, Samuel. And over to you, Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Mensah, and I work with the African Science Academy. The African Science Academy is an all girls STEM school, which is located in Tema Community 6. However, we have students coming in from all over Africa. So think of a Pan African school that is based in Ghana. And this is to get more girls to go into STEM careers and STEM pathways. So apart from the everyday curriculum that schools run, like the math and the physics that students need to get into the STEM careers and pathways, our focus is also very keenly on the non-examinable parts, so the leadership skills, community service, coding, computer programming, and robotics and whatnot. And what makes us special as a school is that we run an accelerated program. So at the end of your time at ASE, you would sit the Cambridge A-level exam. However, instead of taking this course in 2 years as is done traditionally, we typically run a 1 year course, or that's a 10-month course, together with the other elements that I mentioned, like computer programming, like community service, like mentorship sessions. And the main aim for having this sort of program is for us to have well-rounded individuals, particularly girls, because it's an all-girls school, who then go into the world and create change from where they are. So once again, like I said, our students are all from all over Africa. And so if we have that one Ugandan girl or that one Nigerian girl who gets this excellent training and then goes back home to impact her community, then we feel the ripple effect and ultimately have a better continent. So, in a nutshell, that's the African Science Academy and what we do.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, too. Finally, to you, Dr. John Sebemafo.
All right. Thank you very much, Afi. It's great to be here. Um, I'm John Sebemafo. I have a PhD in information systems and an MBA in MIS. I'm a co-founder of RX Health Infosystems, JAMS Infosystems, and a few other companies. Um, RX Health Infosystems, we have operations across Ghana, Nigeria, Angola, and we keep expanding. Um, we have been in the tech space for quite some time. Let's say started tech from I was somewhere around class 6, right? Started programming all the way from there, and it's been very interesting. Being the university, um, try to raise a lot of young ones. Some are doing very well. Um, One of the success stories stems out of one of the innovation labs that we built here on campus years ago, and that is Pharmaline, right? So if you know Pharmaline in the space, started at a wonderful hub, which myself and my assistant at that time, I was then the head of web development services for the university. We set it up. We nurtured a lot of young ones, VMO, among a few others, which have sprung up, and M-Notify, all of them have sprung up and become big companies now. So we've been in the space of trying to raise young um, tech leaders in Ghana and across Africa. I've consulted for quite a lot of agencies. Okay, still there, but USAID, MasterCard, GIZ, the World Bank, Bill Gates Foundation, among others. So it's been quite interesting trying to understand the space. I've built quite a number of systems along with great, wonderful young people that are being used in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Angola, and it's been exciting. And I'm excited to be here to share in this thoughtful talk. Thank you, Afi.
Thank you so much, Doc. I really love the diversity on this panel, specifically the fact that we have, folks from academia, industry, innovation, and then also there is the lens of the diaspora so that we can have conversations that contrast and then compare. So I'll be asking questions that directly tie to what you specifically do. And so my first question will be when we talk about nurturing the next generation of African tech leaders, what does that actually look like in practice in relation to what you do? I would like to hear from you specifically, Dr. Marfo, because of the nature of this question.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. When we talk about the the, the tech African leader, right? Basically, we're talking about a leader that is more project based, right? I come from academia, I have a very interesting opinion. I love practical things, right? I believe theory supports practice. So we talk about that kind of tech leader, we're talking about somebody who is hands-on, right? Somebody who is driven by passion to use technology in varied forms and in varied ways. With one of the key goals trying to cause change or make impact, right? And so, in my opinion, when we talk about the next generation of African tech leaders, these are that kind of leaders. But there is something very interesting I need to hit here. And I think we've been at a point where African tech has been going around in circles. What do I mean? And that's where I think the next gen comes in, right? And that is sometimes being academia, I see a lot of young people start, and it's all about some funding $5,000, some funding $10,000, some funding $20,000. And I love. And then you see a similar on the other side of the diaspora. They start and they dream big. They are thinking of $1 million. They are thinking of $10 million. They are thinking huge. I want to see the next generation of tech leaders not eating the crumbs at the table, but being part of the table and they're actually making the meal, right? They're actually making the meal and they are serving and they are making it happen. That is the next gen of African tech leaders I am looking out for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'm going to hold a question for how we actually do this. In practice, how do we actually bridge this gap? Is a conversation that we are going to hold on to. But Samuel, to you, I want to, from your experience, how would you describe how the current state of, tech talent development looks like in Ghana? What gaps have you identified that still exists when you look at young innovators transitioning from school to industry? This in particular, and when you talk about the design space, it's one thing to learn about design in school, and it's a whole other experience actually designing. So, I would want to get your perspective on that. What kind of gaps have you identified?
Thank you, Afi. So yeah, from my experience, especially this year, since we've been on a campus tour across multiple universities, I've come to realize there's an abundance of raw talents within Ghana. You can walk into any university or even like the small communities that we have. There's the Thedsgnjunkies, the other communities, your own community, because she can. Right, you find a lot of young people experimenting, designing, coding, dreaming, right? But I think for me, what's missing is that bridge between learning and opportunity, right? Because there are a lot of talented people, there are a lot of people who are learning and want to be good, but sometimes just don't get access to the opportunities that might be available to some of these different people in other parts of the world. Right. When I started my organization, I've come across countless young creatives, young designers, people in the tech space who are brilliant, but pretty much invincible, right? They've had a skill, but they just don't have the guidance or they don't have access to the rooms or the places that matter for them to be able to take their skill to the next level. So that's why, I mean, in my organization, we've been able to experiment with the talent network this year, where we help some of these people find internships, jobs, and mentors to be able to guide them to the next level of where they need to get to be able to have a successful career, right? So yeah, I think the gap isn't really a lack of ambition; it's just a lack of structure that connects learning to real life experiences, right? And I think once that bridge exists, the tech ecosystem in Ghana will really much like explode with a lot of innovation and new things that will take us to the next level.
Thank you, Samuel. Erin, I like the conversation that we were having with, I mean, what Dr. Marfo was talking about with regards to the young African tech leader not dreaming big enough. And with your experience working, I mean, both in Ghana and in the US, and seeing how young people in the US and how, I mean, bigger they are able to dream, what challenges do you think the young African actually has in being able to dream that big, and how do you think they can actually get there? I mean, if there are any pointers there from your experience, we would love to hear about that.
Yes, thank you. So truly grateful for what has been said already. And in regards to, the young African leader tapping into or leveraging their experience, I really believe that it's clear, there's no question that Africans have the talent, they have the skill. As Samuel mentioned, it's primarily about access and mindset, right? What I've experienced and even been able to see is that once an individual, a mentor, can affirm what we see in our youth, they become so empowered. And when they have clarity and a path to plug in to the opportunities, they are limitless. So with that, I really believe that that bridge with creating access, creating opportunities, and also providing that affirmation, helping our youth to one, see what they already carry and what's within. And once we affirm that and be able to have systems and structures that can introduce them to the opportunity of a career path, opportunity either in entrepreneurship, and we're not talking about these these micro projects that gives them 5,000 cities, that opens them up to share their intellectual property, and then it's pretty much a case study. Now they've taken it and run with it. I really believe that we have to cancel and eliminate taking those breadcrumbs and really seeing that our youth has the skill, they have the capacity, they have the capability, and they really can lead in the front and not on the sideline or from behind, because truly the skills are there. It's really just creating that space, having those hubs where we are empowering them. When we talk about the cell phone, and I'm not just saying that nurturing is training people to fit into systems. I'm really talking about building the systems that fit our people. With that access, cell phones is not just a luxury. I believe that the cell phone, it is like a classroom and a marketplace. It is a bank. Like, we facilitate transactions on a day-to-day basis on our cell phones. So having a conversation about utilization of a cell phone and how it can create access to the marketplace and how we can monetize using the cell phone. I believe that is a conversation that our youth can really identify with and relate to. And now their minds are open. It's over 615 million Africans across the continent that use mobile internet. And that single device that we hold in our hand, it really has the power where we can learn, build, and lead. We can show up, we can speak what's on our mind, what we're experiencing, and we can talk about solutions that we want to bring to the forefront. So, nurturing the tech leader, it really looks like saying that the cell phone is a tool of purpose, not just for social media, but for problem solving, coding, digital marketing, micro entrepreneurship. There's digital products, helping them to see that the phone is not just a screen, but it's really a system that they can use to, even understand the data, and they can be able to design and really develop. It's the systems that I really believe that we can use as our passport to purpose. So um, when it comes to empowering our youth, and as leaders in our own right, being able to mentor them, help them to understand how they can monetize um, their passions and their purpose, and help them to think big and speak big, from the posture and the mindset of going after the opportunities that they have access to, not believing that so and so is better at this or better at that, helping them to trust what's already within. I really believe we can see more momentum. We can graduate engineers and not just entrepreneurs. So creating that system and that space, where they can turn that education into execution, because the gap between education and then being able to apply themselves is really significant.
Can anyone hear
And
me?
really uncover those limitations and those blockers, so that we can now do more with creating the space for our youth to plug into.
Thank you very much, Erin. That was really insightful. I really like the fact that you touched on representation. I've always talked and about the fact that representation matters. It's very hard to envision what you can achieve if you're not seeing somebody that looks like you achieve that. And so it is one of the reasons why, even in events in local communities, because my work is a lot of grassroots work, and usually you'd realize that we get recommendations to take certain women, which is not a bad thing in itself, to these communities. But I have also come to realize, or from my experience, that when a girl sees a woman from her community who went to the same school that she did and then has been able to achieve, ABC, it is more impactful to them than somebody who is way removed from their reality. And so I like that you touched on that very much, and even more so, going beyond just entrepreneurship, where you are given meager seed funding. There's a lot more that goes into entrepreneurships, and so totally. I'll come to you, Jennifer. I would really like to understand from your perspective. We can't have this conversation without touching on the gender part of it. The gender lens is very important. In your experience, too, with the current state of tech development in Ghana, I want you to identify for us some gaps you have identified with young women. Okay, so the gaps in your line of work. What are the challenges that you are identifying?
Thank you, Afi. So, like you rightly just highlighted from Erin's submission, representation, a lack of representation is one of the issues that um, we find stands out in our line of work. So, what we do is that we try and recruit girls from underserved communities, and more often than not, the number one challenge is just a lack of confidence from the students or the prospective students themselves. They haven't seen someone from their community undertake what we are telling them that they can do. And so even before they start the journey, they start it from a place of a lack of confidence. They are not sure if they are able to do it. Will I be the first? How is it possible that I will be the first female tech guru from the community? Sometimes it's as big as the community. It's the first person from a family to ever go to a tertiary institution. So that's one challenge that we try and work on when students come in. And then the ability to collaborate across cultures and disciplines. So more often than not, once again, you find that the girl child is limited in their exposure, in their experiences, in even how big of a dream that they have. And so where we have people who can go on with false confidence, I like to call it, you find that the girls are more hesitant. You need to do more work with them, more of a mindset shift or a mindset change with them before they are able to actually get into the character and do what you're expecting them to do, or you believe that they can do. And you find out that they're actually very brilliant at it once they put their foot in it. However, it's just the courage to start, the confidence to put in. And also there's the issue of a lack of opportunity or lack of access. And once again, that's why our focus is mainly with girls when it comes to STEM careers and STEM pathways, because we find that most girls already start this life and this journey, this tech journey, 10 steps backward as compared to their male counterparts, just by virtue of their gender. And so they have males, you find, will have more access to scholarships, to mentorship. They're just exposure and so on and so forth. But with the girls, there's a lack of focused support for them. So these are some of the challenges that we identify, especially when we go on our recruitment rounds, when we are working with our volunteer networks from across the continent. And this is the reason why schools like the African Science Academy exist, so that we move away from the narrative that school is just about you getting in, getting your grades and getting out, but it is more intentional. It's about building you up such that you are able to make meaningful contributions to the community that you find yourself in.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I like that you the statistics, and usually questions like this, we end up regurgitating the same statistics. But I've also come to find out that, like you said, it's a lot more systemic. I may even go on to say that it is possible that we can say that there are been a lot more opportunities now for the woman. However, are they even prepared to take the opportunity? The average, if you take the African woman, it's not brought up in certain ways. Like, it's so systemic. The mindset change is very important. There are people that we need to sit down with and actually let them understand that you can actually do this. Like, you have the audacity. I mean, we know that typically even women apply for jobs when they are 60% qualified. When they think they're 100% qualified. For men, it's 60%. Right. And so the mindset change, I really like that you touched on that. It's one thing creating solutions, but when you create solutions without even the people realizing that the people that you are creating the solutions for, you need to give them some kind of extra help. So thank you so much for touching on that. Now, you mentioned something about education being intentional. Dr. Marfo, I'll come to you with this point. I read a degree in IT for my undergrad, and it's just a normal thing to hear that you can finish this program and not know how to code. It was same with the computer science folks, right? How do you think universities can prepare students for the realities of the way Africa's tech space is evolving? That is one part of the question. And in the areas that we are seeing now, we are talking design, AI, entrepreneurship, totally. But I also want you to touch on because of this case I just mentioned, I just talked about, there is increasing advocacy for practical teaching in schools, and I mean less of the theory. But then also in my line of work and all the things that I've done, I've also come to realize that the theory was also very helpful. And so I want you to, I mean, look at this question from both angles, preparing students for the real world, and also how we can make sure that we also don't lose out on what they really need to know as well. So, Dr. Marf, over to you.
Sorry, I think I was muted. Let me send you back to where you began from, and I think that's where the first problem starts. It's a mindset change. Why do we need to prepare you for the real world? You are living in the real world. Why do we even need to prepare you? You are the pinnacle of the society. Do you understand? Very few, just a small percentage of the society hits the university level. So for you to be there, you are not starting life. You are actually in life. So the first mistake we make, and I think it's the difference between us and the advanced countries. 18 years, you're packing out of your father's house, any small mistake, you are gone, right? So you start living. Do you understand my point? You start living. So you start fending for yourself. You start making your dreams come true whilst you are in the university. And I've been arguing this for quite some time now. I wish somebody can give me a huge funding just to try and do such a change. In our own small way, we are. I mentioned the farmer lines, the M notifies, all that. That's the reason why we set some of the hubs. But for some of us, when we left for PhDs, came back, these hubs had gone back into some other needs. But the whole point is this. Look, if we want to cause change here, the change must start right here, right? So I'm a firm believer of the fact that apart from an academic transcript, everyone who is in a university or whatever needs an experiential transcript. That experiential transcript should be even more important to all. And it's true. That's what workers, employers want. They want to know your experience. For the degree, you all have a first class, you have a second class, everybody has one. And doesn't really tell us who you are, right? It only tells me, yes, you are brilliant. But can you really, if I need to make a sale, can you really make the sale? You have a first degree in marketing, but can you make a sale? Okay, any employer want to make the sale. It's not about what first class you got and all of that. Okay, so I think the first point we need to start is to let everybody realize that they have to start living their dreams while they are in the uni or at that level. After 18, you are there. Start living it. Let me just cite my daughter, right? My daughter just entered SS. Before she went, right? When she finished her BC, what was she doing? I made sure she was programming, building mobile apps with AI, all these kind of coding left, right, center. She was basically she's dreaming to be who she is, even in the secondary school. I'm not waiting for a university before she starts dreaming, right? She needs to live her dream way before. And for me, that is the first point where we need to. I've had so many students walk to me and say, what am I going to do after school? In my class, and those who have sat in my class will tell you, it is hands-on. The last semester, those are taught introduction to programming. You have to end up building an application yourself. And you are using AI. You are using the Claudes. You are using the ChatGPTs. I don't believe in not using AI for learning. The student should be able to. He's living into the next world. My world is perhaps even gone. He's living into another world. So I must make sure he's ready for that world as he goes on, right? Now, the last one which I want to put across is this. I believe that when we are students, right, we kind of need to create opportunities, because you see some of these, and who was it? Samuel mentioned it. Network, opportunity, right? Network. You can be the best in the room. I always say you won't get $1 million job or a $5 million job because you are good. Forget it. You ain't getting it. Other than that, perhaps Donald Trump will not be the president of the US. right? It's about networking. It's about knowing people. It's about connecting, right? It's about linking up, and that is something that most African students, when they start, don't realize it. They are so locked up in their books, learning here and there, and not trying to make that network works. The only place perhaps we have done networking well is the political space. So you see political parties juggling whilst we are in school, and they are making use of that network. What about in the tech space? What networks are we forming? What cliques are we forming, right? What sort of big businesses can we make? Let me end with this. Let me go back to Farmerline's story. If you know the history of Farmerline, which is big now, Farmerline started as a relationship between an undergraduate student, that's Aloysius, and Ima, who was a postgraduate student. In most of our universities, what has an undergraduate student got to do with a postgraduate student, right? Especially in Africa. But that network brought their synergies together so that they can create that big company that is making waves across Africa. And so that networking aspect, for me, creating those opportunities is also very critical. Apart from the mindset change, is very critical so that we can actually move the next gen of African tech leaders into being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marfo. I really liked this point on networking and creating opportunities. In my experience, and I mean, with what I've done with, African women in tech, I have come to realize this too, the networking, right? Because people hear networking, that's another thing. I think I put this on my Instagram recently. People hear networking and automatically always think about what do you even call this, vertical networking. And so I say this thing and people laugh, but I'm like, what most of you want to call networking is a glorified form of social climbing, because you are trying so hard to get to people that are at the very top. But when you look at it, you realize that the people that you were looking up to at that top play in certain circles. Those circles, they nurture those circles together. But you realize that you are in undergrad, you are reading computer science, you're reading IT, computer engineering, and people don't know their course mates. You don't know what your course mates is working on. You just go for lectures, maybe you go hang out, have a drink after class, and then that's it. Like, you don't know anything else about them, like what they plan to do after school. Like, your horizontal networks are also as very much important as your the vertical networks that you're trying to break into and then build. I started Because She Can with my co-founder, who I've known since high school in Achimota. And another thing that you also touched on that I also want to highlight even in this story is that you can actually just start things. For me, when we started Because She Can, it was like an NGO at your age. Typically, the work you're trying to do is done by, industry veterans who are trying to give back. And I'm like, that means that there is an opportunity for me because I have a different perspective. I'm new in the space. I just graduated from school, so I actually know what the problem is. Most of the problems are, and I'm not coming to slap band-aid solutions on the problems. Okay, so I think it's really important. It's a very good conversation to have. Thank you so much, Dr. Marfo, for that as well. Erin, I want us to talk briefly about the tech skills that young Africans are learning at this point. There are so many things happening. People are learning from YouTube. People are learning from Coursera. There are so many courses, many organizations, think tanks, NGOs like Because She Can and the likes are forming partnerships with organizations. You are talking Coursera, Udemy, being able to afford young Africans a chance to take these online paths. How do you think we can better recognize and support these alternative learning paths? Because it's still very normal to hear, for roles to demand for you to have a degree, right? what can we do to support these alternative learning paths? And this is not even a degrees necessary or not conversation, but feel free to also chip that in.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question, because I truly believe and actually live by, if experience is all you have, experience is all you need. And with these alternative learning paths, there are so many millionaires and billionaires that are self taught, peer learning, and they leveraged relationships. They leverage relationships we can be effective in any environment and in any economy. It really helps us to be able to channel our focus on where we invest our platforms like Coursera. Those are individuals that have developed some sense of mastery, and they've leveled up their language in a fashion to where they're able to articulate their experiences in a fashion to where it's now digestible, and anybody who has access to the internet can now go online and listen and learn, and really be able to align themselves and connect the dots with, now how does this apply to my life? How can I now create a service or a solution or a support, to yield some impact? So understanding, that there are credible individuals out there on these platforms that we can learn from, and then creating, what do I now want to do with this information? It really helps to position any individual to actually be brilliant and be effective in this society. I believe that certainly it's important to get forms of education, be it in the university. But for me personally, I learned by choosing my path, in that those things that resonated with me. For example, I loved tech. I wanted to learn more about it. I intentionally scheduled time to learn more about how I can apply AI in my day-to-day life, how I can now utilize AI in my company, how I can now um, help my clients infuse AI into their operations and their practices. So it's more so about a system thinking mindset and a method to really understand how things connect, interact, and really influence one another within a larger whole. Instead of isolating and the problems and how we learn, just really being open to seeing the systems and the patterns and those relationships, right? um, I really believe that everything is connected, and no decision or policy or product really stands alone. So when we think about all of these different means and platforms of areas to learn, we can choose one. We can choose one and really build ourselves upon that, leveraging those structures and um, really being able to position ourselves to plug into an ecosystem or an environment where we can be effective and yield the impact and apply ourselves, produce produce jobs. It's really limitless. I believe that someone talked about networking and building relationships. It is very true that our network is our network, and when we take the time to build those relationships, nurture those relationships, allow other individuals to counsel and guide us, and not be the gatekeepers. There's too many gatekeepers out here, and I believe that it's our responsibility for those that have experience and exposure to show up and mentor, to pour into the youth, so that they can, so that we can pass the torch, so that we can impart some of our works and our successes into them, and they can carry that out in the form or fashion that they're actually born and blessed and purposed to do it, right? Again, I just really believe that everything is interconnected, and Africa really doesn't need saving. We just need sinking. And with that sinking of our skills, our systems, and our stories, we can really thrive together, leveraging all of these online platforms and tools to really help us to grow. In the digital space, it's so much power and opportunity to information. So we have to be intentional, discern, and create based off of that.
Thank you so much, Erin. I like that perspective very much, and like you said, you also touched on networking. It's such an underrated skill, and then your network being your network too. It's. I mean, it can't be further from the truth. So important. Thank you so much, Samuel. I want to also get your take on this whole conversation as a creative founder, simply because I wanted to take this from the where tech and then design also meet. Okay, so we can touch on leadership in the tech space, but from your perspective, at least in Ghana, a lot of creatives are doing well, but many more are also struggling. And the creative space isn't somewhere people automatically assume that I can make a bank from or I can succeed in. It's always maybe a passion project or something I'm going to do on the side. What do you think we can do to support, folks in the creative space, but also from your perspective, what kind of advice as well would you give to, people? With these conversations, I like it when we stay away from what can be done to what advice would also give to young people, because even if there are interventions or government comes in to do anything, or like classic how people like to say we call on stakeholders and these stakeholders come on board, the people that they are going to be serving need to have certain things in mind. What advice would you also give to these young people, whilst we also identify what can be done to better support them?
Yes. I would like to, if you can take the question again, because I didn't really get what you were trying to ask.
Okay. So, from your perspective as a creative founder working with creatives, this question is a lot in one. So there is the general mindset. I know creatives who are doing well, but there's also the general mindsets where creatives, lots of other creatives are also struggling, right? And so at the confluence of design and then, tech, what advice would you give to young Africans who are who want to also lead in this space? And then what do you also think can be done to better support them? So this is a two-part question where we are throwing the ball to the stakeholders, but we also want to support the people that are going to benefit from any interventions if the stakeholders come up with any at all.
Okay, no problem.
Is that
So yeah,
clear now? Okay.
yeah, it's clearer now. I'm going to take it as best as I can. So in terms of the advice for people coming up in a creative space, I think there's this very common misconception, the fact that design is purely about aesthetics, right? but that's very far from the truth, right? So it always gives people the impression that, oh, design is just something we leave at the end and we'll come back to it when we have a budget or when we have time and all of that. And people typically focus on other things. But design is far from that, right? So design is pretty much about empathy. I believe it's about seeing people, understanding their needs, creating something meaningful for them, right? So design can be applied anywhere. I mean, human-centered design thinking can be applied anywhere. So even if you have an NGO, right, you need to understand the markets you are trying to address, their challenges and all of that. So my advice for people who are trying to enter into this space is to see it from that angle, see it from more of the science angle rather than the visuals angle. And that's one of the things that will put them in the right state of mind to be able to actually be of value to any organization or clients that they work with, right? In terms of creatives who want to actually make impacts and lead, what I'll tell them is to just start making things that matter, right? You don't have to always have the answers, you just need to start, right? When I started the Design Junkies, it was started as a podcast primarily because a lot of people kept coming to me asking for help, advice on how they can enter the creative space. And I realized the issues were common across all these different people I was speaking to. So I was like, okay, why not just start a podcast so I can address all of these things to hundreds of people at a go? And over time, it grew into the movement that it has become. Same for you, I feel, when you were talking about Because She Can when you started. I'm sure it was pretty much a similar path, right? You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to start and be willing to learn and adapt as you go. That's what I will say to people who want to enter the creative space.
Thank you very much. I like that you said when you just start with what you have. Sometimes you think we need to have it all, sorted out. Even before we registered as a recognized NGO, I said to my co-founder, we don't need to wait for this registration to go through. There are certain things that we can do that don't require us to be registered. For example, showcasing women in tech. So we're just on social media because representation matters, like I've said, just showcasing women who have done things in the tech space within Africa because the girls need to see it. And so it's just by starting with what you have, like you started with the podcast, and then now look at you. Same with Because She Can. Sometimes I can't even believe some of the opportunities and the things that we get to do because almost 5 years ago after school, we got up and said that, hey, we want to get more African women into the tech space. And so that is that's a very good point, Samuel. Now to you, Jennifer. I think my last question will go to you before I go around to get, because this conversation is so, it could go in depth. I think we can go on and on because there's so much to be said, but it's also very important that we have such conversations. Jennifer, because of your work with the African Science Academy and how you work with women, how do you think STEM focused institutions and initiatives can better support girls and underrepresented youth into tech leadership roles? Because it's one thing having a tech role, and it's a whole other thing being able to move into the space of tech leadership. Because I would also, most of you notice my questions are very they are packed. You will notice that for most people that are very smart, Dr. Marfo mentioned the point of they just studying and studying and studying and studying, right? um it's easy to get lost in that and not pick up skills that can actually get you into leadership. So you realize that there are people that are meant to be software engineers and that's what they are going to be. But if we want to see more young African leaders in places of power, for example, if we want to stop seeing 5,000 cities, 10,000 cities seed funding, and we want to see people get be able to raise, $3 million, $1 million in a very short time. It means that we need to see more young Africans in tech in certain positions and places where decisions like this are being made. Like how much money is going to this country, how much money is going to be here. It's all plugs into network. So how do you think that we can we can support girls and other represented youth into leadership roles in tech when you using using schools like the African Science Academy? just what do you think we can do? I mean, feel free to expand as much as you can on this, because it's like a 3-in-1 question.
So I'd say that over the course of the years that I have worked with the African Science Academy, I could, off the top of my head, think of 3 things that really matter when it comes to what STEM institutions should be doing for success in justice, particularly with the girl child. I think it's very crucial that STEM institutions create a sense of community and belonging, a safe space where curiosity is not judged, but it's rather encouraged. This is very crucial to have people, especially my girls, think outside of the box and be confident that the thoughts that they are putting forward will not be judged but will be encouraged. Of course, critiques will come every now and then, but you should be able to be confident enough to put it forward in the first place. So, community and belonging really matters in nurturing African talents from the classroom to the leadership position. And then another thing that really matters is opportunity and access. We've spoken about it, and I think it keeps coming up a lot. And that just goes to show how important it is. Scholarships, mentorships, exposure to industry and university pathways. So over here at the African Science Academy, we have a module that we call the guest speaker module. And what we try and do with this guest speaker module is that we invite people who are already in the industry, people who are already working in the tech, the STEM space. And we try and use this as a bridge, a connector for those being educated and those who are already in the industry, so that it's not two isolated things. I don't finish with my education and find out that the industry is not what I thought it was, or this is not what I expected. But while you are getting the education, you're being so intentional. We're being intentional with the education that we're giving, that we are creating a bridge between industry and education. And even in doing this, we are quite particular once again about representation. It's important for us to see women at the front. And I speak from where I stand. And that's why I keep referring to women whenever I make a submission. It's important for our girls to see representation of women leading. And sometimes it may seem like the littlest thing, but we have a session and then we have maybe a hijabi who is doing amazing in the STEM field present, and that session does so much for a student who is also a hijabi, for example. And so for me, I would say that the 3 things that really matter for STEM institutions to bridge the gap and also make sure that we're getting the education industry link correct as community and belonging, opportunities, access, and of course, representation.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, too. And I want to say thank you to all of our panelists, Dr. Marfo, Erin, Samuel, and Jennifer. We've had such a great conversation. Thanks for the thoughtful insights and for everyone who also joined in the conversation today. This discussion, as said, is part of the Royal Build-Up series leading to the Royal Edition of Tech in Ghana in Kumasi on the 4th and the 5th of December at the Jubilee Hall, Mensah Palace. Hope to see all of you there. My name is Kweyakie, and it's been a pleasure moderating this session. Thank you again for being a big part of this, and I hope to see you all in Kumasi. Have a great and wonderful day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.